Hello. अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी। फारूक साहब स्क्रीन शेयर हो रही है मेरी आपके पास?
जी जी आ रही है सर, आ रही है, बिल्कुल साफ आ रही है।
बिल्कुल। फिर मेरे ख्याल दुआ हम कर लेते हैं, रब्बी यस्सिर वला तुअस्सिर व तम्मिम बिल खैर। तो अल्लाह ताला हमारे लिए आसानियां पैदा कर और हमारे तंगी से निजात दे और तमाम खात्मा खैर के ऊपर कर। Actually, the purpose of today's session is to introduce OBE. OBE stands for Outcome-Based Education. This is the initiative taken by Pakistan Engineering Council, and it comes under the so-called International Engineering Alliance, which was signed in Washington, called Washington Accord. And there are several countries right now on the screen which are the signatory members. Pakistan joined in year 2017, April 2017. And you can see India has already joined in year 2014. And afterwards, probably Bangladesh has also joined this. So the idea behind OBE is to change the educational system. Actually, before going into this formally OBE, today I am trying to introduce OBE. I mean, this is a long presentation. I won't be able to complete it, but I will try my best to do whatever I can. We will talk about what is OBE, its core principles, its framework, and the rationale towards OBE, what environment OBE stands for. I mean, Pakistan Engineering Council's initiative for accreditation criteria they have put forward. There is a taxonomy called Bloom's taxonomy. We will address this and we'll talk about industry academia linkage. And in the end, there are some quotations. Before going to start, I would like to show you one video, about 3 minutes video. I mean, it's quite an important video, which is about the flaws in our educational system. So I would like to run this. People have been finding hundreds of flaws in the education system. No conceptual understanding. The list goes on. All these are symptoms. What is the fundamental flaw in the education system? Let's be a rapid game. You have 1 second to answer every question. Let's start. First question. A4. Likely to think so. Yes, that was what we were told in our kindergarten. That is was done. We would have asked you for all the words, starting with A, and, is, April, and. Different answers would have popped out of everyone's head, leaves you where the problem is. Before children start going to school, each child is unique. Every child thinks differently. I think this is a fundamental flaw in the education system. During the industrial revolution during the 18th century, the education system was designed to make children ready to work in factories. The factories didn't was. So the education system stripped children of their freedom to think.
Hello, can you hear me?
आवाज बहुत कट कट के आ रही है.
अच्छा, मुझे अब आपकी आवाज आ रही है, लेकिन डॉक्टर साहब की आवाज जो है वो कट के आ रही है।
वो वीडियो चला रहे हैं ना सर, इसलिए कट रही होगी तो।
अच्छा, आपकी आवाज बिल्कुल क्लियर है मुझे।
हाँ, असल में ये बंद करेंगे ना वीडियो सर, साफ हो जाएगी।
क्या बंद कर? अच्छा, जब वो वीडियो
हाँ
बंद करेंगे तो सही होगा।
जी जी, आप अपना ऑन रहे, जिस तरह ऑन है, आपकी आवाज़ बिल्कुल क्लियर आ रही है।
ओके, थैंक
हाँ।
यू।
डॉक्टर साहब ये आवाज़ बिल्कुल नहीं आ रही, मेरे ख्याल में वीडियो आप बंद ही कर दें।
आई थिंक आवाज इसमें थोड़ी सी
क्लियर नहीं आ रही
प्रॉब्लम करेगी।
जी जी।
बहरहाल ये वीडियो बताती है कि हमारे करंट एजुकेशन सिस्टम में प्रॉब्लम है क्या, और ये हमारे अक्रॉस द ग्लोब कॉमन प्रॉब्लम्स हैं। और इसका वन ऑफ द सॉल्यूशन प्रपोज्ड बाय विलियम स्पेडी 1994 में दिया था ये आइडिया, the so-called outcome-based education system. So the current system is actually the content-based system. So what actually how Spady has defined OB is actually a process of clearly focusing and organizing everything in an education setup. Uh, what is something essential for every student which can be done successfully at the end of their learning experience. So the keywords are clearly focusing, education system. I mean, for every student to take on board, and there is certain outcome that has to be defined. In general, OB is about taking care of the curriculum, the quality, the standard of education, industry, accreditation process, and everything. So it is not something what we teach, it is something what we learn. It is actually called learner-based system, where the center of attention is learner, not the teacher. The different people have defined it differently. OBE in 2004, Tucker has defined, because we already have an education system, but what we need is to restructure our curriculum, our teaching methodology, our whole educational practices in order to improve this higher order learning. And should not be focused on just accumulating the credit hours, but the learning to be given importance. I mean, another definition where actually primarily the aim is to facilitate the desired changes within the learners. So it is a learner-centric system where you have to हेलो जी, फर्क साहब आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी सर, आ रही, क्लियर है आवाज़।
हाँ,
ये
फारूकी
हमारा,
आवाज आ रही है क्लियर।
जी जी, हमारा ये टाइम भी बढ़ा दिया है जूम ने, तो सर आप कंटिन्यू कर सकते हैं।
चलें चलें, बिल्कुल अच्छी बात है। चलें तो so the key word here is the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude. So we will talk about later all these things. In short, actually, it is the way by which you're focusing on what is actually the need of the learner. So it is something about learner focused. I mean, there are four principles of OBE. I mean, four founding principles on which the OBE depends upon. Uh, the first one is called actually the clarity of focus. So the we are interested in actually what we are interested in. It has to be clear in the beginning. So whatever the learning outcomes are, that has to be defined clearly. So the learning outcomes obviously helps the learner in developing knowledge, developing skills and attitude. In short, I would call it KSA. For K stands for knowledge, S for skills, and A for attitude. So when we talk about clarity of focus, I mean, it should be, the clarity of focus should be in everything. For example, whatever the fundamental purpose is, you must be very clear right from the beginning. And in the assessment process, in the process, in every part, actually the focus should be clear. I mean, that is the first principle of OBE. Second principle is related with we have to give opportunity to everybody. I mean, we have to expand opportunity to not have to make quotas of intelligence, but we have to talk, focus on everybody. I mean, everybody can learn. The point is the time and the day could be different. So learning becomes independent of time and space. Uh, Learners obviously can demonstrate if you provide them an opportunity. I mean, you can give more than one opportunity. It's not just one opportunity, let's say one exam, and everything is decided on the basis of that exam. So that should not happen in this OBE. Speedy call this to be grading in pencil. So what does it mean is, let's say if a student is having a grade, so actually we should not say C grade, but as the time progresses, the same students can reach to the A grade level. So it is, the grades are not something permanent stuff. So they should be changing as the time progresses. So it's a matter of time, it's a matter of teaching methodology, it is a matter of what performance criteria we have made to assess and what are the motivations in the curriculum for learning. So all this depends on a learner to provide opportunity. Third is after focus and opportunity for all. The third one is high expectations for all to succeed. So we cannot differentiate people. By the way, this philosophy by Speedy was originated because he was a behavioral scientist. So he studied psychology and behaviors, and from that it is learned that actually the successful learning promotes successful learning. So I mean, it is a gradual process. So what we need, we have to raise the standards, the benchmarks, but we should not treat everybody with the same yardstick. I mean, obviously, like the grading, for example, we have to eliminate the success quotas. We have to increase the level of our access to the curriculum, higher levels. We have to gradually increase the levels. So Chitty has one of the great tragedies challenge the idea that the children are born with the given quota of intelligence, which remains constant both during childhood and adult life. So intelligence is not a constant. It grows by the passage of time and depending upon the environment, and there are so many factors. So, I mean, everybody can succeed actually. There's a famous quote from Einstein, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So this is what actually we have to do in our educational systems. So if we will make one criteria for everybody, we won't be able to get the results. So different peoples have different specialties. We have to take into an account their individual levels. So after third, the fourth principle is the backward line of the curriculum or any learning process. So in content-based learning, we first define the content, then we develop learning activities, then assess student and their outcomes. So the backward line curriculum starts with on right in the beginning, start with what is the learning outcome. So learning outcome should be given an prime importance. And then we have to develop the assessment criteria, learning activities, and the content. So the first step is what actually we are interested in, what of student, what type of qualities we want in a student. That is the prime important thing. So that has to be defined first, and then obviously we have to develop the assessment methods. We have to develop performance criteria, and then we have to judge their learning. So it is called design down, in which the most important learning outcomes to be taken first into an account, and then we have to take care of less important outcomes. So these are the four principles on which the whole idea of OBE based on. The first is clarity of focus. Second is you have to provide opportunity to everybody and setting up standards. And third is the backward design of, fourth is the backward design of curricula. And this picture shows the whole framework.
यार ये कहाँ से आ गया? इसको बंद करो, वापस आओ स्क्रीन.
This picture, first thing is I want some pointer. Let's say, okay, the pen is here. So the first criteria we have talked about is clarity of focus. So that should be here. Second is our opportunity we have to provide it to. So this one is, sorry, I'm going back. So this one is the second one. That is about okay. So this is the second one, that is expanded opportunity. Third is high expectations. Fourth is the backward design down, or what we call it a backward design. So in the center, we have the most important thing, what outcomes we expect from students. So that has to be focused primarily, and whatever the curriculum is, that has to be taken into an account, clarity of focus, performance criteria we have to make accordingly, and the delivery process should be everybody, and this is the backward design. So all are integrated into a one framework. So where our focus of attention, our expectations, opportunity and backward design all are integrated with performance, curriculum, our facilities available, our teaching methodology, our delivery methods, all are integrated. Okay, the question comes, why do we need this? So if you look at this picture, what actually employers are interested in. Employers are not interested in the GPA only. So the out of a scale of 5, the 4.69 is the rate of communication, honesty, teamwork, communication. So all these are the things, qualities which we want in our students. So OB is about inculcating all these qualities rather than just focusing on grade points. I mean, these are the skills. As the time progresses, we know the skills and the requirements are changing.
इस पे चले जाएंगे ना. अरे यार लैपटॉप भी भिजवा देती तू, याद तो दिलाती मुझे.
हमें म्यूट करा देते फारूकी साहब.
जी जी सर, हाँ बोलिए. म्यूट हो गया.
एक मिनट.
जी डॉक्टर साहब बोलिए, मैं म्यूट कर दूँ.
जी फारूकी साहब, एक्चुअली हम म्यूट करा देते तो डिस्टरबेंस हो रही थी मुझे।
हाँ, बंद कर दिया मैंने, म्यूट हो गया।
Uh, as you see in 2015, the qualities people propose that the problem solving skills, collaboration ability, project management, critical thinking, quality control, service orientation. So there are some skill set which are required in modern day, especially we're talking about industrial revolution 4.0. So today we need the same skills like critical thinking, complex problem solving. So creativity, people management, coordination, emotional intelligence, all these are the skills which has to be inculcated in students. Another motivation behind, so we just not need people who are have learned something and most of the time they have forgotten, but we need people who are the performers, whether they are communicators, whether they are mentors, whether they are team members, whether they are leaders, whether they're planners, problem solvers. So we need people who are performers rather than just have learned something in the past. Uh, we have to inculcate one of the quality, that is creativity. So creativity to be inculcated by motivating students, having curiosity in the subject. We have to give the multidisciplinary approach. We have to give given importance in originality of an idea, and we have to support this independent learning. So these are the factors that actually are hindering for creativity. I mean, there are constraints sometimes from educational system. There is a monotony and there is exam-based approach all the time. Students are only focusing on exams. So this is something which always hinders in creativity. So they don't. So what actually students we should inculcate? We should inspire them. We should give them the freedom. We have to stimulate them, and so that the creativity element of creativity is fostered. Okay, another reason for working on OBE is in the modern day, we need to inculcate the skills. I mean, we call it the 4 C's. The first one is related with critical thinking. So we have to inculcate ability in which they can think critically, they can understand, they can resolve problems. The second skill is communication. So students must have good communication skills. Third is because they are working in a team, they have to work in a team, they have to collaborate. So collaboration is the third C. Fourth is the creativity. So these 4 skills are the requirement of the modern day. This is a study is done by Eric Mazur, one of the professor of physics from Harvard University. I mean, he has put up some results. I mean, the red one is the most critical one. And for example, the student have passed the exam, but didn't have got the subject. So this is the most crucial thing. I mean, so the red area is something which is unwanted, and the green one is something which is reasonable, which is acceptable, is they have learned the subject, they got the subject, and they passed the exam. So so I mean, it is not possible that they failed they learned something and they failed the exam. It is something not acceptable, not possible. So out of this matrix, this the red one is the critical one. So it talks about students have not learned something, but they got results. So that usually happen in our environment as well. They have the GPA, students have GPA, but they don't have the knowledge. So this is something, it means we are not, we are only focusing on grades. We are not focusing on the outcomes, learning outcomes. So that's why students don't get the content and don't get the knowledge, but somehow they manage to pass. So that's why this OB system was evolved. I mean, there are certain more things like, for example, I'm focusing on engineering education. So it is very important to know about the engineering method or engineering approach. And this is my experience that most of the engineers, even the senior engineers also, they don't know what is actually the engineering method of solving the problem. So what is the engineering or scientific method to resolve the problem? Actually, the problem solving starts with the first step is to understand what the problem is. So we must be clear about what the problem is. Second is we have to take into account the factors which are the crucial factors, the most important factors. And then we have to make certain model or make certain experiments so that we can twist the model, we can change some parameters, and we can see the output. And once we got an output, we have to confirm the solution. And once we got the validated results, we are going to make conclusions and recommendations. So this is the three or four step procedures in which the first is the description of the problem. Second is identify what are the crucial parameters. Third is make it a certain model which can resolve the problem. And then using that model, we can solve. So this is a modern day systematic or scientific approach. So most of the time we are not taken into an account. I mean, obviously there is certain physical system which we are studying or which we are trying to resolve. So what we have to do is through analysis, I mean, we have to turn first this physical model into somehow a mathematical or some model which we can change, we can manipulate. And obviously we have to make measurements out of that. So the whatever product we are designing, that product design is coming from observing certain physical laws and certain reasoning to be established. And in sometimes you need to take a sample and make conclusions about the population. So the whole system is having certain input and certain output, and there are some variables which are controllable variables. So we have to take into account how we can change the variable so that our output can be achieved. And what should be our input and what are the noise variables. So this is actually the engineering approach. I mean, this engineering approach to be developed right from the beginning, right from the schools, I believe, or we call it so-called engineering habit of mind. So we call it engineering is elementary. So the problem solving process to be developed, I mean, we have to take into account the context and we have to think about not one single solution, we have to think about multiple solutions. And then we have to make it a trade-off and comparison optimization process. So this is whole systematic thinking which requires scientific knowledge, which requires knowledge of mathematics, which requires knowledge of sciences. And then we have to make sensible conclusions, and then students would be able to communicate their results as well. So this is what actually engineering habits of mind, or the engineer's way of thinking. Another strategy, people call it conceive, design, implement, and operate approach. So the real life problems are always complex problems. So we have to conceive a solution, and we have to design it, we have to implement it, and we have to operate and run. So this CDI approach involves 4 steps: conceive, design, implement, and operate. And obviously, whether a product, whether a system, whatever it is, we have to take into account for example, in the process of ideation, the conceive process, we have to take into account the customer need, we have to take the regulations requirement, we have to take into account the business plan, because whatever product we are designing, whatever process we are designing, it must be feasible in the end too. So there is a design process, there is an implement process, there is an operation process. So okay, another requirement in modern day is so-called design thinking. So it is actually a methodology which designers use to solve the complex problems. So whatever the problem is, as a problem solver, first you have to put yourself into you have to go into the problem. So what is called empathize, and then you have to put it into words, define it, and then you have to think about its solutions and develop the prototype or test it. So this is so-called design thinking process. So most of the time, most of the efforts are actually in the so-called research part, conceptual part. Once things have finalized, then obviously the prototype building and the testing is less time consuming. Another feature, which is what we call it, we are in the modern day, we are supposed to produce professionals which are not just having a depth knowledge, but they have a breadth knowledge as well. So the vertical part of the T is actually talking about the depth part. So at least they have some one area, they have a depth knowledge, and they have strong analytical skills. And then they have to take a breadth approach where multidisciplinary knowledge is required, and you have to take into account, integrate many systems together, and so that you can reach your objective. So this is what is called as T-shaped professionals. So nowadays, all these are the requirements for modern day. So the motivation towards OB is all such different set of skills, modern skills that are required for students to solve the real life problems of the future. Before going into this discussion with the OBE and its framework, I would like to clarify three terminologies which are very important. When you talk about goals, when you talk about objectives, when you talk about outcomes. So people use the goals, objective, and outcomes as synonyms, but you have to be very careful about clarifying these three terminologies. Goals are always, goals, missions, and visions are always broad in their spectrum. Objectives are relatively narrow or sort of roadmaps, and outcomes are very precise precise outcomes. Outcomes are always very precise. So goals, missions are abstract, objectives are specific, whereas outcomes are concrete and specific. Goals are long-term, objectives are mid-term, and outcomes are always short-term. Goals are intangible, objectives are tangible, outcomes must be very tangible. Goals obviously cannot be validated, objectives can be validated, outcomes must be validated. Goals are small in number, usually one big goal, one big mission of the organization. And the objectives are actually the roadmap for achieving those goals. And outcomes are those roadmaps for achieving the objectives. So there is a link between objectives and outcome. I mean, from educational setup, goals are obviously at a university level, goals are defined, and objectives are, for example, if a teacher is teaching a course, so the course objectives to be defined by the teacher. And obviously there are certain outcomes which must be attained by the students, and we have to make sure that the outcomes have been attained. Goals are obviously abstract, so they are not measurable. Objectives must be measurable, and outcomes obviously require certain performance criteria that has to be measured. So we can think of goals are just to wish to have a cake, and objectives is a recipe. Even you have a goal to have a cake and you have a recipe, but you cannot have a good cake. I mean, cake is something when you will be able to validate it, when you will be able to touch it, when you will be able to measure it, its performance and perform the, as we know, the taste of pudding always lies in its eating. So once we eat, when we then we know, okay, our goals have been achieved or not. So we are clear about the terminology, goals, objectives, and outcomes. So when you talk about an educational setup, outcomes are actually short term. Okay, so there is a comparison between the conventional system, what you call it a content-based learning, and the outcome-based learning. In content-based learning, it is always a teacher-centric system, whereas outcome-based is a learner-centric system. In content-based learning, we focused on the content, usually notes or books. But in OBE, we focus whatever the notes are, whatever the learning medium is, we have to focus on achieving the outcomes. Instead of focusing on the content, we have to focus on the outcomes. Content-based learning is the passive learning, and the outcome-based learning is active learning. We have to, it's not one-way traffic, it is a two-way traffic. In assessment process is grade driven, which is the existing process. Actually, it has to be the so-called continuous assessment process where learner is supposed to improve by the passage of time. I mean, in content-based learning, students usually focus on rote learning, but whereas in OB, we have to focus on critical thinking, we have to rationalization, logics, and that is what we have to develop in OB. Content is actually broken into the subjects. So here, actually, it is an integrated stuff where whole learning, assessment, curriculum, teaching methodologies, all are integrated in one package. Content is actually what teachers hopes to achieve. In OBE, actually, it is a learner-centric system. So it's based on what actually learner has learned, what outcomes the learner has achieved. That is more important than what teacher has provided them. So in content-based learning, actually the focus of attention is the teacher, but here the focus of attention is the learner. So we need to take constant feedback from students so that we can have an idea about how their learning process is taking place. Content-based learning is focused on syllabus, where outcome-based learning is where we have to be creative, we have to include design strategies, we have to solve complex engineering problems, we have to include complex engineering activities. So this is in contrast, totally a different system. This is what we call it a CBO syndrome. It means actually this content-based learning, this curriculum-based approach, this so-called calendar-based approach, and the credit-based obsession, all this to be avoided. So this is something we have to avoid this syndrome in OBE. So we have to give time to the students. We have to give clear directions. We have to just not following the academic calendars, but rather maybe sometimes the, students can learn in the end, or sometimes they can be learned in the beginning. So whole OB environment is comprising of developing outcomes. So the most important thing is an educational outcome. So what is the result? That is the most important thing. And that drives the educational environment, that drives the assessment procedure, that drives the teaching methodology, that drives the level of students, the support facilities which has been provided in education environment. So all this is a part of OBE, where the focus of attention is what the outcomes we are going to achieve in the end. I mean, we divide this OBE process into a pyramid where the top level is goal level or mission level stuff. So this is something to be taken into an account by the university. So university is supposed to develop certain missions, certain visions, and then there is a department level. So where we have to develop some program objectives, program goals, program outcomes. So and the third level is the core level, which is actually related with the courses. So and the core conduct of the course is related with the teachers. So where teacher is going to make course objectives, course outcomes, and within a course they have some different modules, and each instructional unit would have certain objectives and certain outcomes. So if you look in this pyramid, there is two type of interaction. One is called horizontal interaction, where we set certain objectives and these objectives to be attained once the outcomes are attained. So this is called lateral interaction, horizontal interaction. And at the same time, whatever objectives the teachers have set in the course, they must be integrated with a program mission, and the program mission must be integrated with the university mission. So this is so-called vertical alignment. So the whole OB system must be integrated in a manner that there should be a vertical alignment as well as there should be a horizontal alignment. Okay, at this point we have got an introduction of OBE, which is a big umbrella, what you call it, outcome-based education system. Obviously, this is a big umbrella which is based on core principles, but right now we are focusing on what Pakistan Engineering Council has formulated. Its accreditation manual is based on OBA, what you call it, outcome-based assessment. So there is a difference between OBE and OBA. So most of the universities right now, they are focusing on OBA. So they are interested in developing an outcomes, developing an assessment criteria, and developing a feedback mechanism. So that is related with what we call it OBA, stands for outcome-based assessment system. And we can think of OBA as a subset of OBE. So OBE is a big umbrella under which OBA comes in. So right now PEC has focused on OBA. Obviously, it has common roots with OBE too. So usually this accreditation process, which is to be undertaken by Pakistan Engineering Council, they have developed certain graduate attributes, what we have taken as a program learning outcomes. And these are the attributes that once student finish the degree after 4 years at the time of the graduation, they must be able to attain those outcomes. I will talk about these outcomes. There are 12 attributes in the later part of this presentation. And obviously, the higher education institutions have the freedom to choose whatever their design is, whatever their curricula is, whatever their teaching methodology is, whatever their course learning outcomes are. So it is all up to HEIs, higher education institutions. So in short, OBE is actually the system of, OBA is rather a system of assessment evaluation, so that the learning outcomes or the goals and missions that have been formulated have been achieved. In this OBA cycle, obviously the mission of the university is on top, and at the department level, certain goals and certain objectives to be defined, certain outcomes to be defined. There is a certain performance criteria to be established, and all the assessment to be based on that performance criteria. And obviously, we have to, this is the continuous process in which whatever the results we have got for one cycle, we have to review and evaluate, and we have to do this so-called continuous quality improvement, and this cycle continues. And this is exactly the same as what we used to know, this so-called PDCA cycle. There are 5 terminologies which I talked about that must be clear once we understand this OBA system. Objectives, outcomes, assessment, performance criteria, and evaluation. So we have already defined some part of objectives and outcome. So for example, at a department level, we are supposed to establish certain attributes of the students once students complete their work, and after 4 years of their graduation, what they do in the industry, they are actually called program education objectives. So they are always long term, and the outcomes are the short terms, and these are the attributes which students are supposed to achieve once they finish their degrees. So we usually call it PLOs, program learning outcomes. And POs are few statements about what type of students we want, what type of skill set we want once they complete their degree and they go into the industry. Usually what we, in everyday language, the word assessment is considered as examination. So that is not true. Assessment, even at the objectives level and outcome level, even at the course level, there are certain course objectives and course outcome. So these objectives must be achieved when the course is completed. Let's say in a semester. So the timeline for CLO is a semester, and timeline for PLO is 4 years period of graduation. And POs are about, it takes about 8 years, 4 years in the university and 4 years in industry. So they are long term. Okay, come to assessment. Assessment is actually a process of identifying, collecting, and preparing data. And that data become useful, or we will be able to evaluate. So assessment is just a data gathering process. What we call it in OBA system is assessment is just a data gathering process. This data to be assessed by certain performance criteria. So there are certain KPIs to be formulated at the course level, at the program level, that has to be reviewed. And this review process is called evaluation. So we have to check whether students learned it or not. So that is, so this whole thing goes into a cycle. So this evaluation is a continuous process, which is the foundation for quality improvement. So at this stage, we have learned what OBE is. I just would like to recall, and we have learned their 4 principles, and we know what actually the objectives, outcomes, assessment, and performance criteria and evaluation means. Next is, this is 9 criteria-based assessment system what PEC has put up for all engineering institutions. The first criteria is to develop the POs of their program. For example, whatever program you are offering, let's say automotive engineering degree, so you must have certain POs. The second criteria is develop program learning outcomes. These are the 12 graduate attributes which every student must possess once they finish their degree. And criteria 3 is about the curriculum and the learning process. The criteria 4 is about the students. The criteria 5 is about the faculty strength and supporting staff. Criteria 6 is about facilities and infrastructure. Criteria 7 is about institutional support and financial resources. Criteria 8 is about the mechanism of CQI process. So the institutions must have this CQI process, so they can evaluate their performance at different time levels, at the course level, at the program level. And the criteria 9 is about industry linkages. So all engineering programs across the country are supposed to be evaluated or their accreditation process to be completed based on these 9 criteria. I will show you by example. For example, at NED, the university has a mission to produce leaders in enabling Pakistan's social and economic transformation. The mission of the university is acquire education and research excellence in engineering and allied disciplines to produce leadership and enabling application of knowledge and skills for the benefit of society with integrity and wisdom. So these 2 are set at the university level. I mean, keeping the university vision and mission, the department also has formulated their mission. For example, in automotive department, we're supposed to produce automotive engineers which are capable of applying knowledge and skills for solving the problems of society in general and automotive industry in particular, keeping higher values and professional ethics. So our mission is very much integrated with the university mission because the application of knowledge skills are there and the benefit of society and integrity and wisdom. So they are all present in our mission. So this is what is called vertical alignment. At the program level, the department has formulated objectives like once they finish their degree and in next 4 to 5 years, our student would be working in automotive or any related industry, applying the knowledge of science, mathematics, and engineering, demonstrating teamwork and project management skill in a multidisciplinary environment through effective communication and utilizing modern tools and observing professional ethics. So this is the second objective we have formulated. Third is once they finish their degree and they're working in industry, they will be able either going into the planning side, designing side, manufacturing side, testing side, or servicing side, or maybe in research, maybe in teaching. The fourth objective is the graduate should be able to pursue the lifelong learning through professional trainings and practices with consideration of safety, environment, and sustainability. And these are the objectives we have formulated at the program level. So basically, these 4 objectives means what type of animal you want in the end. So in order to achieve those objectives, we have to outline certain outcomes. And for example, the outcomes, I mean, the framework, what we have made here is at NED in my department, we have CLO. CLO stands for course learning outcomes. And obviously, there's certain course, at a course level, there's certain outcome. They have to be assessed by gathering data, and these have to be evaluated. And whatever their improvements are supposed to be improved through a so-called CGI process. So this is a one cycle. And there is another cycle similarly like establishing program learning outcomes. They have to be assessed, they have to be evaluated, and there's a continuous quality improvement process at the program level. And the third level is program education objective level. So at the program level, we have broader objectives, and these objectives to be assessed, evaluate, and there is a CQI process. And all 3 are integrated together. I mean, the POs are the 4 statements. PLOs are those 12 graduate attributes. And for different courses, you have different CLOs. So all these CLOs are indirectly achieving the PLOs. And once achieving the PLOs, program learning outcomes, it means we are achieving the program education objectives. Obviously, we have statutory bodies in our university like Board of Studies, Board of Faculty, Academic Council, and there is a quality enhancement cell at the university level and OBE lead committee. So they are all integrated with this the course level, program level, and the university level. Obviously, the program objectives are based on vision and mission. And one more thing we have done here in order to get feedback from the industry is we have formulated a board called Industry Advisory Board. I call it IAB. Okay, so this is the whole framework we have formulated in our department. I mean, every university have their own frameworks. These are the 12 attributes which I have talked about. Every engineering program in the country is supposed to observe these graduate attributes. So every graduate of the country must have these attributes. So we divide these attributes into 12 attributes. The first one is related with engineering knowledge. And this engineering knowledge means students have an ability once they finish their degrees, 4 years degree program, they have an ability to apply the knowledge of science, mathematics, engineering, fundamentals, so that they're able to solve the complex engineering problems. And that is the keyword I have put in the bold: complex engineering problems. Second attribute is problem analysis ability. Third is design, development, and solution ability. Fourth is performing investigation. Fifth attribute is related with modern tool usage. Sixth is about engineer and society. Seventh is about environment and sustainability. Eighth is about ethics. Ninth is about individual and teamwork. So if you look at the back, the only attribute number one is about engineering knowledge. And then 2, 3, 4 comes into a category of so-called problem solving. Whether it's a design problem, whether it's a complex engineering problem, whether it's an experimental problem to be resolved. The fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, all attribute is rated with professional development. So engineering knowledge is one attribute, and there are several others like problem solving ability, professional development, and 10th one is communication, 11th is project management, 12th is lifelong learning. So out of 12, if you look at the distribution, there only one is engineering knowledge, 3 problem solving. So there are 4 out of 12. So 8 is all related with professional development. So that is something of focus in the modern day, where students should be given an opportunity to use modern tools. They should be able to take care of the health, safety, and legal and cultural issues. They are able to take care of environmental concerns. They have to take care of sustainability. They're taking care of the professional ethics and teamwork, communication, project management, and innovation and creativity. So these are the learning outcomes which we expect every students to accomplish once they finish their degrees. I'm skipping this 8 points of Washington Accord. Actually, they are the so-called knowledge profile from K1 to K8. W stands for Washington, K stands for knowledge. So these are the attributes once we talk about knowledge framework. So we have told about actually the 3 things: knowledge, skills, and attitude to be developed. So these knowledge profile is subdivided into 8 components. And if we look at WK2, it's not about mathematics. It's about conceptually based mathematics, numerical analysis, and statistics, and formal aspects of computer information science to support analysis and modeling applicable to the discipline. So if you look here, all these attributes or the knowledge profile areas, so you see, looking back the definition of engineering, first define the problem and then solve in a methodical way, and then you have to interpret the result or to manipulate the model. So the whole engineering is the knowledge element is bounded in these 8 areas. Similarly, students should have certain ability to solve the complex engineering problem, and they have defined what is meant by complex engineering problem. So the complex engineering problem means it is not a problem where you have one problem and have one unique solution. So complex problem means this problem must have several possible solutions, and students should be able to formulate, optimize, keeping in view the market requirement, keeping in view the standards and codes which are in practice for professional engineering practices, and the requirement of the stakeholders, and interdependence of different factors. So when you talk about complex engineering problem, it is involve different features, different attributes. It is not just a numerical problem. Similarly, all the activities in which students have to perform, because it is activity-based learning, so students are supposed to produce something, innovate something. They are supposed to use different materials, different technologies, and to in the end, they end up with some product or some improvement in design or a process. So basically, these complex engineering activities are performed at industry visits, internship, and final year projects. FAROOQUI sir, any question to this point? Hello, FAROOQUI sir, any question to this point?
But I think we should conclude this and we take questions from the participants if you allow us.
Actually, I mean, because there are so many more slides, but I mean, should I continue more? Because I just have talked about OB, OBA.
But I
Can
think
I?
you should concentrate on the benefits that people can get from this type of education. So it
Okay,
will be
so
better, yes. Please.
okay, okay, okay. Okay. I mean, earlier I have talked about three type of skills, not skills, but three type of competencies. I mean, one is related with the knowledge, other is related with the skills, and the third one is related with attitude. So, in Bloom's have in 1954 probably he has formulated a taxonomy called Bloom's taxonomy. So, for every domain, like knowledge domain, which is related with the brain, they have put different levels of knowledge. For example, the lowest level of knowledge, what we call it, is a remembrance, where we just able to recall from the memory. The second level is, if you look at these levels, so the first level is knowledge level, where we are able to memorize the stuff. In the second level, we understand. Once we understand, it means we will be able to explain it in our own words. So once we have once we have got knowledge and understanding, then the next level is an application. Application means you have reached the understanding, you have got an understanding, you have a knowledge, then you are able to apply it. So this is the third level. The fourth level is you are in a position, once you have applied it, you are able to analyze. So you will be able to make conclusions. You will be able to divide your problem. So after analysis, you will be able to evaluate. So evaluation means you have analysis ability, you have application ability, you have understanding. So once you reach to a level of evaluation, it means you are reached to a level of judgment. The fourth final level is the highest level of cognitive domain is synthesis, what you call it. Once we will be able to create something. So when in one of the definition of OBE, you have seen that there is a word called higher order thinking skills. So when you talk about higher order thinking skills, it means not just relying on remembrance or understanding, but ability to increase application, analysis, evaluation, and creativity. So higher, once you go into this pyramid at the top level, so you are going into the higher order thinking skills. So we have been gifted with the brain, so that is related with the cognitive part, and the highest level is creation. Second is evaluation, second highest level, then analysis, then application. Similarly, if we talk about skills, skills are related with your hand. So we call it a psychomotor. So brain is actually related with the cognitive part, which is related with the brain. So most of the time, engineers are focusing on a cognitive part. Very less they focus on psychomotors. So when you talk about psychomotors, it means obviously the lowest level is imitation, where you have an ability to mock if somebody has demonstrated. Then you will be able to manipulate. Third level is precision. Fourth is articulation. The highest level is naturalization. So just think of skills like, maybe let's say a simple example of dancing. I mean, at the initial level, you just try to mock, and then you add some more manipulation, and later precision, articulation, naturalization develops. So this is the different levels of psychomotor domain. So when you just observe, you just copy. It's an imitation level. Manipulation, where you actually demonstrate. You can manipulate things in a precision. You have an ability where you can choose your own methods, and in articulation, you can do it in a methodical manner. And once it becomes a part of your, it becomes a built-in characteristic, then it is called naturalization. So it becomes a part of your character. So different levels, and we can see it, for example, another example is about measuring through micrometer. So initially we copy it, mimic, then manipulate, then we can measure it precisely, and then it becomes a part of our, so in no time we can measure through micrometer. Effective domain. So effective domain is rated with the heart, and I told you there are three competencies: knowledge, which is cognitive part; skills, which is psychomotor part; and attitude, which is related with your heart, what we call it an affective domain. So the first lowest level is receiving, where actually you listen to somebody. Second is once somebody asks a question, you respond. And third is you give value to, let's say, if you talk about a customer, you give value to a customer. And then at the highest level, it's a part of your organization and a part of your character. So these are different levels of attitudes. So in OBE, we have to focus on higher order thinking skills, attitudes, and psychomotors. I'm skipping this slide. Another taxonomy that is actually very important, what we call it a solo taxonomy. Solo stands for structure of the observed learning outcome.
क्या?
Hello.
अच्छा नहीं ठीक है, अभी ठीक है ना?
Hello. Farooq sir.
Hello.
Yeah. Should I continue, no?
जी जी कर सकते.
Actually, let's say if I talk about word understanding, I mean, understand something.
Hello.
Hello.
जी सर.
आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी आ रही है, क्लियर है.
Okay. For example, the first level, if you have no idea about a subject, I call it a pre-structure. So you don't know anything about a subject. So you say your mind is having no idea about a subject. Let's say if you have a stage in which you have some idea about a subject, so we call it a unistructural. So at this stage, maybe you can define something, but you are not able to explain it in your own words. So third stage is what in the mind comes is called so-called multi-structure. So what you have is you, for a given subject or a given idea, you just not able to define it, but you will be able to explain it in your own words as well. So we call it a multi-structure in your mind. So it means you cannot just define by one way, you can define by different multiple ways. Okay, the fourth level of understanding is lies with, you have multi-structure in your mind and you can relate them. So you can compare them, you can analyze them, so you can make analogy with them. So this is called relational level. So the lowest level is you don't have any idea. Unistructure level, you have some idea. In multi-structure, you have multiple ideas about the same topic. And the next level is relational. It means you have these multi-structure in your mind and you are able to integrate together. You will be able to sequence them. You will be able to classify them. You will be able to analyze them. So this is called relational level. The final level is called extended abstract. It means you have multi-structure in your mind. You have an ability to relate, as well as you can create something from your own as well. So this is the so-called extended abstract level. So once you reach to the level, it means you will be able to create something, you will be able to predict something, you will be able to analyze as a judge. These are different levels. And whenever we talk about learning outcomes, whatever we observe, it could be either pre-structure, it could be uni-structure, it could be multi-structure, it could be relational, or it could be extended abstract. Extended range is obviously the highest level where you will be able to integrate, you will be able to create something, synthesize something. I mean, in educational setup, when you talk about assessment, obviously there are three different types of assessments. So before starting a course, let's say we have a diagnostic assessment. So we could have a pre-test, we could have an entry test. So that is about where actually the student is standing before actually starting a learning process. So then what happens is learning started and you know where student is standing. And during the learning process, you take different quizzes, you take different questions, you take midterm exams. So this is called formative assessment. So during the formation of the learning, the assessment is called formative assessment. And once the student have learned, complete their learning, there is a assessment called. Hello.
अपने माइक को बंद कर दीजिए। जी सर, आप कंटिन्यू रखिए।
Another type of assessment would call it as summative assessment. This is actually done once the learning is completed. Usually it is the final exam or your final viva. So once we make sure that the learning has been achieved. So the diagnostic is in the beginning where students are standing. Formative is rated with keeping the track whether students are going in the right directions or not. The third is making sure that the students have actually learned it. As I told you that the learning in this OB doesn't mean everything to be done in the classrooms or everything to be done in the class timings. It could be done at any time, at any place. So there are so-called open online courses available, and they are sometimes enrolled thousands of students. That's why we call it a massive open online courses. So there are different learning platforms like Coursera, edX, open courseware of different universities across the globe. They provide opportunity for learning. So nowadays, learning is not just restricted to a teacher, but learning is, no boundaries. So we have to integrate moves in our educational system in which we can achieve the objectives we have outlined in OBE system. I told you about the industrial linkage. There is a criteria 9. So that is what actually the industry people would be interested in because students are supposed to solve the problems of industry as well, along with the research work or the academic work they are doing at university. So they're supposed to solve industry problems as well. So it means the education institutions must provide opportunity for students to have industry visits, an opportunity to solve the industrial problems, whether in FYP or whether in an internship. So, the assignments to be given in such a manner that the problem is something originated from industry, so that student would be able to solve the complex engineering problem where they're able to use all their skill set, all their attributes. Obviously, collaboration is very key, where industry and academia must collaborate together so that there's an interaction between students and faculty members with the industry. So students and faculty members would be aware of what industry is doing or what actually industry is interested in. So that is only possible once academia and industry have an interaction. Obviously, we have to get the feedback from the industry as well, because that is crucial. The whole OB system involves a continuous quality improvement process. So whatever the performance criteria you have made, whatever the assessment you have done, You have to evaluate and you have to show up certain improvement, either in the learning outcomes, either in the objectives, or in any educational process. I mean, for this purpose, after adopting OBE, most of the universities in the country have formulated industry advisory boards. So these industry advisory boards involve members from industry. For example, in automotive, I have included people which are working in automotive industry. For example, Tariq Khan Saab from Indus Motor, and from Suzuki, from Hino Park. I mean, they are on our board. So, I mean, this industry board have a bigger role to play. They can review curriculum. They can strengthen the interaction between industry and academia. They can jointly undertake final year projects, I mean, improving industry academy linkage, increase the frequency of internship and industry visits. I mean, some input can be given to OBE system as well, because this OBE system itself requires continuous improvement. We can have jointly workshops, conferences, and we have some program for taking feedback from industry. So, I mean, this is all come under the umbrella of Industry Advisory Board. I mean, obviously, a lot of time we talk about industry academia, but obviously there are certain differences between industry and academia. So I have just noted down few of them here. I mean, industry is for surviving. They have to strive for surviving, whereas in academia, actually, the purpose is to strive for recognition from their peers and faculty and university. So universities are interested in the ranking process, whereas industry is getting output, throughputs. So industry usually have short-term goals. Academia is working, their academic calendar is at least a semester is 6 months. And the whole year is, the whole academic process goes in 4 years when they complete their degree. So there are differences. Industry always prefer, most of the time they prefer the solutions which are always proven, having low risk, whereas academia is mostly interested in innovation or modeling, and coming up with innovative solutions. Industry is profit-based. Obviously, academia is non-profit, except the private sector universities. Industry is market-oriented, whereas academia is less market-oriented. Most of the time, people in academia have no knowledge what industry is doing. Industry usually have fixed deadlines in academia, since they work on long-term goals, so their deadlines are usually flexible. थोड़ा सा और है अभी 4-5 slides. Industry works on real data, and the people are practical approach, whereas in academia people are more theoretical and they want scientific vigor. I mean, I just skipped. I mean, industry is on teamwork, where academia people are working mostly, they are working independently. Industry is more proficient in soft skills, whereas academia is more analytical, hard skills. I mean, there are things which we can do. I would skip this slide. I mean, I just want to focus on I mean, in modern day global industries which are actually spending in R&D, how much of their percentage they are spending in R&D. So if you look at Amazon, I mean, they are about 25%. They are spent 25% of the revenue goes in R&D. I mean, There are a few exceptions, but most of the IT-based companies, they have higher investment in R&D. So that actually OBE, we have to focus on creativity, we have to focus on R&D. So for that purpose, at a HEC level, there are different types of grants are offered. They're called research grants. For example, National Research Program for Universities. Actually, this is a little bit older. I mean, they have now new umbrella for HEC funding programs, but the basics are exactly the same. So they have one fund which is called Technology Development Fund. That's about contribute about 14 million rupees, where industry and academia can develop, put forward a project. So there are different opportunities for publication, for partnership and collaboration, for R&D activities at a university level as well as at industry level. So they are all available on the website of HEC. And these four are actually one of the criteria for the ranking at HEC level is their research, their teaching, and their community engagement. So the last one I have put about is the outreach programs at different universities that also contribute in the rating of the universities. TDF fund is the most important fund which actually can help bridging the gap between industry and academia. And last year, probably in 2019, might be they have increased the amount of funding up to 21 billion, not the 14 million, but they have completed a project where the beneficiary is industry and the intellectual work to be done at the university and in a duration of 2 years. So the principal investigator from a university and then industry to be on board. Then HEC is providing such funds. One more thing HEC has done is they have established ORIC offices in different universities. ORIC stands for Offices of Research, Innovation and Commercialization. So this is a good initiative by HEC where they are focusing on whatever the research is that has to be commercialized. So these are separate offices, departments have been established in different universities, even though they are at the inception level. But this is a good initiative from the HEC level to promote industry linkage, where all research and innovation should end up into a commercial product. I mean, there are different objectives for ORIC, which I am not going through, but they have incubation centers. For example, at NED, they have a national incubation center available where ideas to be incubated. I mean, given different facilities from hardware, from software, and from marketing, from all such facilities are available in these incubation centers. Obviously, I skipped this. I just want to conclude here. I've given an introduction about OBE, and the founder of OBE is Spady, and Spady has already mentioned that real OBE is almost impossible for an education system to implement because it requires such profound levels of change, a paradigm thinking, in mission and purpose, in organizational and structural arrangements, in the very meaning, teaching and curriculum, in the structuring and use of time, in resource allocations, in professional training, deployment and support, and in the role of entire system in its societies, social fabric and economy, that political, cultural, and economic leaders of our country cannot bring themselves to address the community of the toss. So that's why when asked where one can see real OBE in action in education, I say nowhere. So this is what Spady has put forward. I mean, Einstein defining education is not the learning of the fact, but the training of the mind to think. So education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. So these two quotes depict the importance of outcomes. Outcomes are more important than content. There's a one important quote from Nelson Mandela: "Education is the most important weapon that you can use to change the world." Aristotle: "Roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet." The old Chinese proverb: "Learning is a treasure that follows its owner everywhere." And in Quran, ayah about नाफियन, अल्लाह हमें अता कर वो इल्म जो के नाफे हो, रब्बी ज़िदनी इल्म. So this is where I conclude. I thank all of you for listening, and if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Yeah, so with us Dr. Moin, sir. He is the Vice Chancellor of Metropolitan University. He has some questions. Yes, Dr. Sir, you can ask question now, please. Dr. Moin, sir. Hello.
जी बता, जी फारूकी साहब.
Sir, you can ask the question, sir.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
जी सलाम वालेकुम.
डॉक्टर साहब बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग आपकी ये प्रेजेंटेशन रही. मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि आपने मैनेजमेंट साइंस के थ्रू कुछ काम किया हुआ है कि जहाँ आपसे सीख सकें कि किस तरह से ओबीई को मैनेजमेंट साइंस के कोर्स इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकें?
जी बिल्कुल. एक्चुअली जो हमारा पीईसी का फ्रेमवर्क है, इसमें जो ग्रेजुएट एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं, उस पर आपको बताया था मैं कि इंजीनियरिंग नॉलेज सिर्फ एक एट्रीब्यूट है. बाकी उसमें से 12 में से बाकी 8 जो हैं वो दे आर ऑल रिलेटेड विद प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट, व्हिच इंक्लूड्स प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट, व्हिच इंक्लूड्स environment sustainability, which includes professional ethics. So all this is integrated into this OBE framework.
तो डॉक्टर साहब मैं आपको इंशाल्लाह नेक्स्ट मंथ इनवाइट करना चाहूँगा अपनी फैकल्टी के साथ, जहाँ से आप उन्हें अपडेट करें कि किस तरह हम आउटकम बेस्ड एजुकेशन को इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकें अपने तमाम कोर्सेज के साथ.
बिल्कुल.
ताकि हम अपनी प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड लर्निंग करें, ना कि हम इसे एक थ्योरेटिकल टोटली चल रहा हो और बच्चे स्लाइड्स वगैरह चीज़ों के ऊपर क्विज असाइनमेंट दे के ए ग्रेड ले रहे हो, थ्योरेटिकल लेवल की जॉब सर्च कर रहे हो.
जी बिल्कुल. एक्चुअली हम
sort of wastage of time and money for last many years.
Well, I would be happy to work with you. I mean, there's no issue.
Okay. SN Farooqui साहब is also with us. SN साहब को क्वेश्चन आप करना चाहेंगे, please? SN साहब.
फारूकी साहब, अगर आप 1 by 1 क्वेश्चन ले.
हाँ, मैं एसएन साहब से रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप एसएन साहब को क्वेश्चन आप करना चाहेंगे. हेलो साहब की नेट के शायद प्रॉब्लम है. चलिए सर, हम कंक्लूड करते हैं. थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर टाइम. और मैंने पार्टिसिपेंट से कहा है कि और भी कोई अगर कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो हमें व्हाट्सअप कर दें, तो इंशाल्लाह फिर हम जो है आपको
मैं आपको पीडीएफ भेज दूंगा, आप ये प्रेजेंटेशन शेयर भी कर लीजिएगा सब.
जी सर जी. तो थैंक यू वेरी मच सर फॉर द टाइम, और थैंक यू ऑल ऑफ द पार्टिसिपेंट फॉर स्पेंडिंग योर टाइम. थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक यू.
चलिए, थैंक यू वेरी मच. शुक्रिया जी.